الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the book of Akhsar Al-Mokhtasarat, and we are in Kitab al-Bay'. And last time we talked about the shurut في البيع, the conditions in buying and selling, and that these conditions is of two or three types. The two types, sahih or fasid, sahih, valid, versus not valid or not permissible. And the fasid, or which is not valid, is of two categories. Fasid, it's not a correct condition, but it doesn't invalidate the contract, versus fasid, or not valid, but invalidates the contract. And the major differences between both, that if it's not a sound condition, if it's a wrong condition, an invalid condition, but it's not from the essence of the aqd, not from the essence of the contract, something that is, as they say it, from muqtada al-aqd, as a result of the aqd, as a result of the contract. So, and if it's a fasid one, it's an invalid one, the transaction itself, it's valid, but the condition is not. And like the conditions of a person purchasing something, that with a condition that he doesn't lose on it. That's a fasid. That's what's a good word for fasid? Invalid condition. But it doesn't invalidate the aqd. It does not invalidate the buying and selling. So he says this condition, and they already purchased the matter and he lost on it, it doesn't matter. He does not have the right to return it back, because there's no such a thing in buying and selling. And as he says, أو متى نفق وإلا رده. أو متى نفق, that means, or if the merchandise that he purchased, he make a condition that as long as it has rawaj, its price is good, it's not that people are turned away from it, otherwise he'll return it. So someone purchased whatever, something that he's not sure if he will be able to resell it or not. So he says, as long as it's popular among the people and the market is there for it, I'll keep it. Otherwise, if it's not, he makes it as a condition that he can return the merchandise. This is an invalid condition. This is not a permissible condition. But the transaction, the original transaction, is valid. And the like of this. And the like of this. So this was the last thing that we talked about. The other one, which invalidates the contract, if it's something that negates the essence of the contract itself. Like he mentioned the examples of having aqd or another contract with it. Like qard, for example. A loan contract with the selling contract together in one contract. He would sell the house, but with the condition that you give him a loan. Or rent to own, two contracts in one, not two separate contracts. That he would rent for a period of time, and then he would automatically purchase the place with $1 or $100 or what, it doesn't matter. So these are two contracts in one. It's an invalid contract. Has to be two separate contracts, because there's something called bay', it's buying and selling, and there's something called owning, and so on. So this is the conditions fil bay', shurut fil bay'. Then after that, the next subject is, and actually the last one was وإن شرط البراءة من كل عيب مجهول لم يبرأ. You guys have the book. The last statement, وإن شرط البراءة, if he made a condition, البراءة من كل عيب, to be the merchandise to be free from any defect, مجهول, unknown, then the ruling here لم يبرأ, he's not free from it. He's responsible for it. Right? So it doesn't matter if he says as is. As is, I'm selling the car as is. And there is a defect in it. The buyer can return it back if there's a defect in it. And the first person should not say, well, I sold it as is. Yes, this is religiously how it should be. So this is with al-aib. And the aib or the defect will be mentioned again, inshallah. Then the next subject is al-khiyar. As he says here, is following, inshallah. Because we're going again word by word, and if those who are with us, if you have, you should have the link of the book so that you follow with the Arabic, inshallah, and you write down what every word means, inshallah, so that we can get the essence of what the words means. So, والخيار سبعة أقسام. الخيار سبعة أقسام. الخيار, as we mentioned before, is when a person would seek خير الأمرين. Al-khiyar from al-khayr, from goodness. So you have two choices. You want to choose what is best for you. This is al-khiyar. Like salatul istikhara. You're choosing the best of whatever choices that you're facing. So al-khiyaru sab'atu aqsam. There's 7 types or 7 categories of al-khiyar, or choices that a person can have in the contract of buying and selling. And what is meant here again, that al-khiyar here, what is the choice? The choice whether to continue with the transaction, or you break the contract, the contract or the transaction. This is al-khiyar. That a person has the ease, that he has the luxury whether to continue or whether to break it. Of course, before he goes to do anything, he has the choice, of course. But if he sign a contract, if he purchased something, do you have a choice to return it or not? Do you have a choice to continue with the contract or not? There are 7 things or 7 types that will be mentioned here. And in some of the books, you would find 8 or more. So it's not necessarily a fixed number according to matters of Sharia. This can be more even according to how categories of things. In matters of fiqh, because it's law, sometimes the classifying things, it might seem that it's complicated. So that's why it has to be clarified and becomes clear. So we have to be patient with how things are to understand it in the right way, inshallah. So the first one, and we talked about the 7 types of khiyar in the other book, but briefly. So now we're going through the words of it. He says, khiyaru majlis. Khiyaru majlis. Khiyar again is the choice whether to continue or not with the contract. Majlis, what is the majlis? The gathering, or when people are sitting together. So what is khiyaru majlis? He says, فَالْمُتَبَايِعَانِ بِالْخِيَارِ مَا لَمْ يَتَفَرَّقَا بِأَبْدَانِهِمَا عُرْفًا. فَالْمُتَبَايِعَانِ, the fa here, therefore, or then, al-mutabayi'an. Al-mutabayi'an from al-bay'. Al-bay' is buying or selling. So al-mutabayi'an, this is muthanna, this is dual tense, refers to the buyer and the seller. So instead of saying al-ba'i' wal-mushtari, we took al-ba'i' and we took al-mushtari before. Al-ba' is the seller, and mushtari is the buyer. But if you say al-mutabayi'an, then it refers to both the seller and the buyer. So this is al-mutabayi'an. So the word al-bay', it depends on the context, can mean the buyer or the seller, even though its original meaning refers to the seller. That's what al-bay' is. Al-bay'. But al-mutabayi'an is both. So فَالْمُتَبَايِعَانِ بِالْخِيَارِ. So the buyer and the seller, they are bil-khiyar, that means they are by the choice. They have a choice to not to continue with the contract. ما لم يتفرقا بأبدانهما عرفا. ما لم, as long as they do not يتفرقا. التفرق is to be separated. التفرق, and the تفرق is to be different from one another. We are forbidden from التفرق. ولا واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا. Read the ayah. Hold fast to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not disperse, do not disunite. So التفرق, the physical تفرق is when people are separated. So there's a physical and a non-physical one. So they have the choice to break the contract or not to continue, as long as they did not separate physically. بأبدانهما. So to make it clear that it's a physical separation, by the word بأبدانهما, by their physical bodies. And the mim alif at the end is because of the dual tense. And al-badan is one's physical body. بأبدانهما by their physical bodies. عرفا. عرفا, al-urf is what is known to the people. And the urf is a huge subject in the subject of al-fiqh, meaning what people consider to be separation or the deal is over. They separated. So the original form, the very clear, simple one, is that two people are sitting together, talking about what they're selling and what they're purchasing. How much, this much, agree, no problem. Okay, so they agree. So the transaction is done. I purchase, okay, I sell it. Whether there's a contract or there's no contract, whether it's they signed something or they didn't sign something. So the deal, he gave him the money. He took the money. There's no money now. I'll give you the money after a year. Sure, no problem. But the merchandise is sold. It's done. No promise to sell it in the future. Words are clear, whether it's a contract or words of mouth, that this is a deal that is done. Once it's done and they're still sitting, then any of them, both of them, one of them can say, I'm sorry, I quit. Even though everything is finished, they give the money, everything is done. So this is the simple form because they're still together. They did not depart. So once they depart from each other physically, the deal is over, right? Yeah, a person, if he wants to return it back, please forgive me, can you take it? Sure, no problem. But it's not binding upon it. So this is the very first simple way of it. And this is khiyar. That means there's a choice. A person can lose that choice if they agree. So if the moment they sit together, they say, listen, once we sign the contract, you cannot back out of this deal. Okay, and he agrees to it, then it doesn't have to be that separated from each other physically. But if they don't say anything, and the deal is you have that luxury, you have that space to return back. And there, of course, there's a wisdom, as the ulama, they say, and you see this is by the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, البيعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرق. البيعان, the two buyer and seller, they have the choice as long as they don't separate from each other physically. Why is that? Because you feel that you want this thing so much. Once you sit and once you sign the contract, once you give the money, you don't feel like you want it anymore. So to give that space to the human being, if he regrets something, that he has a lineage in it, a space in it. So this is where they call it khiyarul majlis. But as you see here, we're not talking about all the different situations and all the different examples and things like this. And that's why, again, if you have questions at the end, we're studying just the simple form of the mas'ala, the simple form of the matter here. And then, but with every word that is meant here. So المتبايعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا بأبدانهما عرفا. عرفا, this is a very important point or meaning here. عرفا meaning what's known to be, they're not separated. So for example, something new, عرف, in the عرف of the people, they can buy and sell when they're talking on the phone, right? Or over the net. You purchase something and you're not saying anything, you just touched and things like this. So it's known that once you hit, and they give you even more than one chance, right? For the most part. They put it in the card, you go to the card, this, are you sure this is the amount of it? This is, and you insist. So the last click, that means you departed. That means it's binding. So this is urfan. This is something that is known, that as if there's a form of separation here. But before that, you have, you can quit or so. So this is the word urfan. How to apply the urf and what is known and things like this. This is also something that of course, we have to refer to the people of knowledge. But this is where they're coming from. So this is the original ruling of it. ما لم يتفرقا بأبدانهما عرفا. But we understand what does it mean بالخيار. المتبايعان بالخيار. They have the choice of not going forward with the transaction as long as they did not separate بأبدانهما with their bodies عرفا. And عرفا, again, according to what's known to the people. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is clear in this. And therefore, the other types of khiyar, as we would see, if that particular khiyar they choose not to have it, that's fine. So whether it's before they sit or after they finish, after they finished signing and everything, then someone would say, if you quit now, it's going to be too late. You agree? Yes, I agree. Right? Then he agreed. But if he says, if you quit now, it's too late. No, I don't agree. So the khiyar is still there. So he still have the choice as long as they're together. And Umar radiallahu anhu used to, when he would buy something or purchase something, after they're done, that he would move away so that the matter is clear that it's done. So that it's, because what if people are sitting together, they're just having a dinner or something, and they sold something, but the dinner is, they're eating and they're socializing for 5 hours. Then after 5 hours, hey, by the way, I quit on the deal. Does it work like this, or this is where the urf? Are they done with the setting that they were upon to buy and sell, or it's still a continuous one? They're still talking about it. So this is something to consider, inshallah. So if something like that, people then they need to make it very clear. Are we done? It means no khiyar, or because there's other choices that are there. But this is the simple way. Clear? Second one, inshallah, he says, وَخِيَارُ شَرْطٍ. The second type of the khiyar, خِيَارُ شَرْط. Shart is a condition, and it's open like this. So the choice that a person would have to break the contract or to go forward, but with a condition mentioned in there. What does that mean? He says, وَهُوَ أَنْ يَشْتَرِطَاهُ أَوْ أَحَدُهُمَا مُدَّةً مَعْلُومٍ. That the fact that يشترط in the muthanna, in the dual tense, that they're both of them, or one of them, or أحدهما, one of them, would make a condition for the khiyar. Make a condition that he has a time where he can return the merchandise. This is يشترط what? الخيار. الخيار, again, what does الخيار means? That he has the choice whether to continue or to break it. Right? That's what it means. So they both, or one, would make it as a condition, مدة معلومة. معلومة, that means known, مدة, period of time. So he would say, you have a month to return this merchandise. So they decided on a specific time. And it doesn't have to be short, it can be long, as long as they both agree. One would make that condition, or both of them. Both of them meaning, of course, usually it's the condition is for the buyer, right? And of course, the seller has a part of it. So you have a month. If you return it after a month, it's too late. That's fine. But the seller, which is rarely happens, he can say, well, you purchase it, but I have a month to change my mind. I might take it back from you. So this is a condition. If he agrees, that's fine. So there's a month here, or a week, or a few days, or whatever there is. So that's why أن يشترطاه, for both of them, أو أحدهما, or one of them, مدة معلوم. So this is something else after they departed from one another. So this is a different one. This is after the deal is done. But they made this as a condition in the contract that they would have a specific time period where they can return or break the contract. So that also can happen after they finish the transaction, whether they do it while they're agreeing or after they're done. And if they both agree, sure, no problem. But with the condition, of course, that they both agree to it. There's a famous hadith that governs many of the transactions and any relationships. Al-Muslimuna ala shurutih. The Muslims are upon their conditions. They should fulfill the conditions, as long as the condition is not something haram or anything like this. So this is the khiyar al-shart. Khiyar al-shart. Of course, there are things attached to it, which is the next point. Some of the things that can be, a person might ask questions. That's why he says, وَحَرُمَ حِيلَةً. وَحَرُمَ حِيلَةً. Haruma, that means haram. And if you want to make the tashkil on it so that you make sure that you read it right. So if you have tashkil on the وَحَرُمَ, because mine doesn't have any tashkil on it, doesn't have the vowels on it. حَرُمَ. Yeah, وَحَرُمَ وَحُرِّمَ. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But does not no shadda, right? Right. Well, I said mine doesn't have tashkil. The one that I'm reading from doesn't have tashkil. So you have it says وَحَرُمَ, which is correct. حَرُمَ. وحرم, that means it's haram, right? وحرم حيلة. حيلة means, الحيلة is the trick or deception, right? Or a person wants to do something not really what he's intended by buying and selling, something else. But before we continue, it says ولم يصح البيع, and the بيع is not valid in this case. And the subject or the chapter of al-hiyal is a huge one, right? Al-hiyal, what people invent of ways to go against or around the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, endless ways that can people do this. And in general, al-hila is haram in the deen of Islam. In any form of transaction, anybody try to play tricks, it's haram in the deen of Islam. So there are many examples. One of which is, for example, in this matter with al-khiyar, since it's as long as it's a known time, if we make up an example, person would say, "Oh, that's a good idea," but it's haram. If someone he wants to get a riba loan, right? But it's haram, so he would make a hila. What's the hila? What's the trick here? Is that he would make a deal with another brother. Okay, give me the car. I will purchase the car from you, and the car is worth 100,000, right? And I have a year to return it, or I have 5 years to return it, right? Because we said there's a mudda ma'luma. It doesn't matter how long. He has the luxury to return it within 5 years, right? So he does this, and then after some time, he will if they didn't sell it, right? That means if he didn't sell the car, like he has it for 5 years that he can return it, and then after that the transaction didn't go through. So that means he has the khiyar to return it back without anything. So then you give him back the 100,000, right? So he paid the 100,000, he gave him 100,000, and he took the car, right? And within 5 years he can return it back, or within a year he return it back, with the intention that he doesn't want the car whatsoever. He just wants the money. So he returned the car, right? And he takes the money. How was that? He gave a loan, as if he gave a loan the 100 for 100. I'm not really picturing the case, but it's you understand what I'm saying? So someone would just give the money. He wants to give the money as a loan, but in return he took the car, but not with the intention of purchasing the car. He just won the money. So when he returned back the car, he turned back the car, which is with selling it of less or something like this, or more money, and he takes the money as a loan. So whatever that is, it doesn't matter. But he might return. Okay, let me get it straight again. You guys are confused. That's good. So he gave him the money, and at the end he got the money back, but he benefited from the car, for the 5 years. Right? So he returned the entire with the same amount of money that he paid. So it was basically a loan, but brought some benefit. So the 100 was returned as 100, but he benefited by having the car for that period of time for free. So this is qard jarra naf. Clear? So this is a loan that brought benefit. Is it clear? And this is a way, I'm just saying, he mentioned it, وحرم حيلة. Anything that has to do with al-hiyal, or playing tricks with things. And there's so many different ways where people now do things where they purchase something that they don't have the intention to purchase it. You know how the harami thing, where they say it's a watch, but it's not really a watch. You purchase, you pay 100 for it, and you purchase this watch. And if you bring two people, they get a commission of this. And money versus money, and it's not really the watch that they intended to buy and sell. It's just something to allow themselves to have commission from one after the other. So the intention is not to purchase a watch to wear it. The intention is to make money from people after one after the other. Clear? You have something is not clear?
Yeah. The example that you gave, seller A
Mm.
and buyers B. right? He buys the car from A, and then after 5 years, he returns back the car with the $100,000.
Okay.
That is haram.
Yes. If it's a trick, if it's a trick, why? Because he got the money back with using the car for free.
Value went down.
Yes. Right. So, and the intention from the very beginning is just money with benefit, loan with benefit. And this is again anything that sometimes people go around with from around the riba with matters of buying and selling. So it's not valid and it's haram, of course, if people do all kinds of tricks in there. So وينتقل الملك فيهما لمشتر. The ownership ينتقل moves in these situations to لمشتر, to the purchaser, to the buyer, meaning after the khiyar. So when a person purchased something and he has a period of time to return it, it's his, right? But then after the period is over, then of course it's automatically for the buyer without any conditions because the period is done. Before that, the seller had a choice to return it back, but now after the period is over, then it becomes for the mushtari, for the purchaser. And then, of course, there are other things with it. If something happened to it, who guarantees it? Like if a person purchased a car, he says, "Give me a week. I have the choice to return it." But he had an accident. Who's responsible? The buyer, of course, because once he purchased it, that means everything that is responsible for him, and the other one can refuse to take it back because he made an accident. So these types of things, or even sometimes something might be, a person purchased something that he makes money from, and he has a month to return it, and he made money from it. He purchased a car and he used it to be rented for other people or something like that. If he rented something, that breaks the choice, as some of the ulama they said, because now this is a sign that you have it, you're gonna have it forever, right? But it doesn't have to be like this. An animal, for example, that he purchased a cow and he fed it so it become very fat, right? And he want to return it after a week. Does he have anything that he can say, well, give me some differences of the weight? No, because this is, and that's why the ulama they talk about النماء المتصل والمنفصل. النماء, if something that you purchased and it increased, if it's part of it or it's separated from it, and then you have the choice to return. If it's separated from it, it's for the purchaser. So you get again a dog for hunting, and he got you some animals. You hunted, you used the dog, and he returned it. The animals that you gained from this is for you. You don't say, "Well, I returned the dog, so I should return the animals to the original owner." So this is because it's separated from it. But if it's part of it, that means again the animal get fat. Then that's for the buyer, for the original seller, because this is part of the animal and things like this. But this is something else, inshallah. So this is khiyar الشرط. He says لكن يحرم ولا يصح تصرف في مبيع وعوضه. So now there was a مدة معلومة, there was a specific time, and he has the choice to return it back. But then when he has this merchandise with him, he says يحرم. يحرم, it's haram for the person to do whatever he wants with al-mabi' or the merchandise. Meaning, if he sell it or he give it as a gift, if it's within that known period, especially if the seller, he makes it as a condition that he has a week, for example, to take his merchandise back. So it's not permissible for the other side to sell it or to give it as a gift. But if the choice is for the mushtari, you guys with me? If the choice is for the buyer, he has a week to return it or not to return it. It's the choice either for not for the seller, for the buyer. And the buyer sold it the next day. That's fine. Because the choice is for him, not for the seller. You agree? No.
Sure, let's say between the buyer and the seller, there is an agreement. The seller says, I will give you the loan, $100,000, and you have to give something as a collateral. like maybe, for example, car. And seller says that I will use this car as long as it's with me. And that's an agreement. Buyer agrees to that. So whether seller can use this car?
This is in the category of الرهن, or the subject of الرهن or the collateral. If it's for a loan and a person is given something as something to keep, if he's not a ransom or a collateral, or like you go to the pawn shop, is it permissible to use it or not? It's not permissible to use it unless it is something that would be of a loss if it's not used. And the example of that is animals, for example, or getting the milk from the animal and things like this. But for a car, for a person to keep it as a collateral and he would use it, and this is a benefit as a result of the loan.
Even if the buyer.
Yes. No. طيب, let's go back here إن شاء الله. So, لكن يحرم ولا يصح. It's haram and it's not valid. تصرف في مبيع وعوضه. It's not permissible and it's not valid for the purchaser to التصرف here is to use whatever means of to whatever he purchased في مبيع وعوضه, and the عوض or the money that comes as a result of that, or what it's worth. So this is what is meant by that, is that to buy it, to sell it, to give it as a gift and so on, if the condition is for the seller, right? And if the purchaser do something like that, then it's not valid and it's haram for him to do so. He says ولا يصح تصرف في مبيع وعوضه مدتهما, the مدة, the time where they agreed for the khiyar to be, a month or two or whatever. إلا, except, there's exceptions here. إلا عتق مشتر مطلقا, unless it's freeing a slave. So if a person purchased a slave, and we said why the ulama, I mentioned the slaves because it's a human being. You can understand the human being at any time. But anything else might change over time. People don't use it anymore. Even though there's no slavery, but you understand what a human being means. But here, and it shows one of the matters of goodness and matters of the Sharia and the Deen, if a slave is being sold and there's a khiyar, there's a choice, he would say, you have a month, I can take him back, right? So he sold his slave to someone else, but he has a month to take the slave back. So if that purchaser, now he owns the slave, he sells the slave, it's okay. Why? Because freeing slaves is a good thing in the Deen. Even if it's a trick, because he got to free a slave. Right? So this is an exception. إلا عتق مشتري مطلقا, without any conditions. Anything that causes for a slave to be free, then we would find the encouragement for it. وإلا تصرفه في مبيع والخيار له. وإلا, that means except, so all the tasarruf, all buying and selling and so on in the time where it's a choice, it's not permissible if the choice is for the seller. Correct? And then the next word of tasarruf here, في مبيع, if it's the tasarruf here refers to something else other than selling it or giving it as a gift. If he is trying it out, this is the tasarruf here. So a purchase, which is an obvious thing. Someone purchased a car and the seller told him, I'm selling you the car, selling this car to you now, but give me a week, I can take it back if I change my mind. The transaction is valid, he sold it, but after a week, if he doesn't take it back, then it's to the seller, to the buyer. So within that week, that person, the purchaser, it is not permissible for him to sell it and to give it as a gift and so on. But if he's using it to try it out, sure, no problem. So this is the second part of the sentence, وَإِلَّا تَصَرُّفُهُ فِي مَبِيعٍ وَالْخِيَارُ لَهُ, and the choice is for him, whether to continue or not, whether to cancel it even before the period of time ends. So if a person purchases a thing, give me a month, I can return it within a month, and then he comes after 2 days, he says, there's no need for me to wait for a month, I already have, I want to have it for good. So he has the choice to cancel the choice, right? So this is khiyar al-shart. So this is the khiyar of al-shart, or the condition. So the first two, they're the most famous, And they are the ones that the ulama, when they talk about al-khiyar, in general, they refer to these two. Khiyar al-majlis, the majlis one, and al-shart, which is in many of the transactions, you have the right to return it back. The third one, let's take that one only, inshallah, for tonight. Khiyaru ghabnin. Khiyaru ghabn. We just took Surah Al-Taghabun, and we said that the word al-ghabn is mentioned in fiqh. This is an example here. Khiyaru ghabn. That the person has the choice to not to continue the transaction or with the contract because ghabn happened. What's ghabn? The loss, the major loss that is not any loss. And al-ghabn here يخرج عن العادة, something that is beyond the norm, but for specific examples. As we said, what is al-ghabn? Someone doesn't know the value of something. A child, for example, it doesn't have to be a child, like grown up, but that's why there's specific matters here. He doesn't know the value of it, and someone else tricked him or whatever. He took the thing with very cheap. It's worth $1 million, and he sold it for $5. So he has a choice to break this contract, to return it back because he didn't know the value of it. So that's why. But is it for general for anything? No. خيار غبن يخرج عن العادة. First of all, it's beyond the norm. Sometimes you would purchase something in this town for 5, and you go to another town, it's 10, and it's okay. This is how things are. People, they vary when it comes to the prices. So you don't say, well, I need to return it because it's cheaper somewhere else. No, they don't have to. As long as it's within the norm, not something that is abnormal in expensive price. But this is not also in general, but لنجش أو غيره. And najash is a way of buying and selling that mainly in bids or al-mazad, when you go into an auction. And you have someone that bids without the intention of bidding, without the intentions of buying. Just this is the guy that they put him in the crowd so that he can increase the prices, right? So if that is discovered, and then the auction, the bid was for whoever gave the highest price, and then they discovered there was someone just raising the price for no reason, he has the right to return it back. Because there's ghabni, there's cheating here happening. So this is al-najash. أو غيره, or other than al-najash, that it becomes something that is very clear that there is some loss that is not a normal loss. And the examples of the ulama, they say when people go out, لا تلقوا الجلب, where the Prophet ﷺ forbade the people from going out of the town to receive the people coming with the trade, the strangers, those who coming with some trade before they enter the city and they get to know the prices of things. So the people in the business, they go out, so they would take it very cheap from them, and they don't know. So they sell it cheap, and then they go inside and they say that we got cheated like this. It's so much cheaper than what it's supposed to be. So this is the like of this. So this is except al-najash. And he says also, أو غيره, and al-ghayri here is also the ulama mention is which is the case of al-mustarsil. Al-mustarsil is the one that doesn't have any experience in anything. Someone that can be easily tricked, especially when things are with bargains. And that one of the early generations of Islam, I mentioned his example always in this matter, or maybe a Sahabi or so. He was very generous. Abdullah ibn Ja'far ibn Abi Talib or so, that he was very generous when someone comes and takes charity. No problem. Gives, and so generous in this. But when he in the market and he bargains, but without the extremity of things where people they try to abuse others when they bargain. And he would say, but if I'm buying and selling and I'm just being like a naive person, that's accusation to my own reason and intellect. Versus if someone asking for charity, I give him. There's differences here. Like if you are in business, if you're in the market and people, oh, here's the religious guy. This is the one that we can trick him easy. You're doing bad to the image even of those who are religious. You're allowing people to commit sins that way if they try to trick you. So don't be fooled by others thinking that this is a form of generosity. If you want to give, and that does not negate the fact that a person should be samh and should be generous in buying and selling. Don't be very strict. It's okay. Let it go with that price or that. It's okay. But you know things. You don't make people think that they fooled you, because this is not a good thing for them and also for you. So here the mustarsil, the one that is naive, doesn't know things. So people can easily trick him. So if then it's discovered, then he can return it back. But he says لا للاستعجال, except if a person is in a hurry. الاستعجال. That means someone, he doesn't know the value of things, but he is in a hurry. So they say then he doesn't have the right to return it back because he was in a hurry. Which is therefore the ghabn, or the major loss, if it's because of his ignorance, that's to be returned. But if it's because he's so in haste to do it, he wants to get it quickly, so it doesn't matter what price is it. He knows that this is more expensive than anything else, but he wants it now, right? So that means he doesn't have the right to return it back because it's his choice that he wants it now, not that he was ignorant about the price. It's clear. الاستعجال is العجلة, or to be in haste of things. So we'll stop here, inshallah. So hopefully the words are clear and we have an idea of the principle or the foundation of these masail. And then one of the ways of, which is a different level, inshallah, we're just still crawling in the first levels of things, that when you have a mas'ala or a matter of in the worldly life of people and their transactions and contracts and so on, the first thing that you should do, that's what the alim or the one that is judging in the matter, he has to make takyif to it. He has to make sure that what is being presented, what is it? What is exactly in the books of fiqh that comes under what category? People sitting together and said, oh, we agreed to this and he wants to return back, but I'm not going to give it back to him. So he has to define what is the matter here. Is it khiyar ghabn or tadlis, or these types of things? And then he knows the ruling, then he can apply it by perceiving the matter in a very well way, and looking at how things happen, but with the full understanding of what the principle of the mas'ala is, and not just the final result or one of the examples. It's different to study an example versus to study the foundation of it and where is it coming from. So this is very important to get to know this. So let's I'll say it one time, inshallah, and repeat after me in Arabic. والخيار سبعة أقسام. خيار مجلس، خيار مجلس، فالمتبايعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا بأبدانهما عرفا، وخيار شرط وهو أن يشترطاه أو أحدهما مدة معلومة، وحرم حيلة ولم يصح البيع، وينتقل الملك فيهما لمشتر، لكن يحرم ولا يصح تصرف في مبيع وعوضه مدتهما إلا عتق مشتر مطلقا، وإلا تصرفه في مبيع هو الخيار له، وخيار غبن يخرج عن العادة لنجش أو غيره لا لاستعجال. Is it clear? Is any word that is not clear? Let's take the hadith. We have we go to where? Bulugh Maram, Jami' Ulum al-Hikam. You guys are taking the Bukhari, right? And Kitab al-Tawheed, we finished it. So we go back to Bulugh al-Maram. So what's the number? تسبيح للرجال. That's the last one. 86 now. Hadith 86. Oh, we took 86 earlier. Okay. طيب 87. No. Okay. Hadith 87 inshallah. Hadith number 87. We'll read the hadith first inshallah. Repeat after me. عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا صلى أحدكم إلى شيء يستره من الناس فأراد أحد أن يجتاز بين يديه فليدفعه فإن أبى فليقاتله فإنما هو شيطان. متفق عليه. So this hadith is in the sutra, in the subject of a sutra, narrated by Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, إذا صلى أحدكم, if one of you, أحدكم, one of you, صلى, prayed, إلى شيء, to something. إذا صلى أحدكم, to something. That means you have a sutra, you have a something that you're praying to. As mentioned before, we should have something in front of us to pray to. You're not praying to it, but you're standing behind it so that nobody would cut your salah, walk in front of you. And a person, if he's an imam or munfarid or praying alone, he should not pray to the open like this, in the back of the masjid and nothing in front of him. He should have something in front of him, whether it's a wall or a pillar or a human being, so that nobody would walk in front of him. So here, إذا صلى أحدكم, now a person is praying إلى شيء, to something, to an object. يستره من الناس. يستره, الستر is to be concealed, to be protected. So يستره من الناس, basically covering him from the people. Doesn't have to be covering completely, but that means it gives him the room to make sujood and things like this. And people, if they want to walk, they would walk behind that shay or that sutra that he took. يستره, that's the verb of a sutra, من الناس. And that's why the sutra, it cannot be a line on the ground, because it doesn't do anything. It has to be something at least 1 arm length from the ground, and it's clear, so that people would walk behind it. فأراد أحد, so أحد, a person, someone, أراد, he wanted, أن يجتاز بين يديه. يجتاز, الجواز is to go into something. Right, so when a person passes by something. So فأراد أحد أن يجتاز, someone wanted to pass. That's why the word passport, they use it in Arabic, الجواز, right? Because this is the pass that you have. So فأراد أحد أن يجتاز, someone wanted to pass بين يديه, between his hands, that means in front of him, before the sutra. Not behind. If it's behind the sutra, no problem, beyond the sutra. But if he wants to pass between you and the sutra, then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلْيَدْفَعْهُ, then let him, the one being in salah, to push him. Do not allow him to walk in front of you before your sutra. فَإِنْ أَبَى, if he refuses, فَلْيُقَاتِلْهُ, then let him fight with him. Do not allow him to pass. فَإِنَّمَا هُوَ شَيْطَان, indeed he is shaitan. The last part of the hadith, it doesn't mean that he is a jinn coming. It doesn't have to be like this. Shayateen can be a human being or shaitan. Or a shaitan can push a human being to do something like this. So it doesn't mean, oh, now we see a jinn. No, it's not like this. So this is what it means. But first, it shows the importance of the sutra. And it shows the importance of nobody to walk in front of the person when he has a sutra. It shows also that if someone is praying without a sutra, that means there's no respect, or if it's correct to say. If someone walks in front of him, he has no sutra. He did not take the means to have a sutra. But still, if someone doesn't have a sutra, walk far away from him, so that as if he has a sutra, even more. Because to walk in front of him in a way that if someone seeing urfan, someone looking at you, he's not seeing that you're walking in front of that person. So from a distance, not just right after his position of sujood. Also, it shows the importance of having the khushu' and the devotion in the salah. And that's why you have to pray to something so that you're not distracted by people going back and forth. But sometimes you don't have a choice when you came late for the salah and you're finishing up your raka'at of salah. You become munfarid, you become an individual making salah alone. And somebody might walk in front of you, and that's why people need to be patient. In the previous hadith, even if you have to wait for 40, then wait. Don't be in haste. You have to go to work, you have to do this, it's okay. And some brothers, for example, they give a suggestion of making a place on the side where people can walk. So take a space from the side of the rows so that people can walk after they finish the salah. Then we waste a position. Why? Because of a minute or few minutes for people to wait. It's okay. So wait for people till they finish the salah and don't rush into cut their salah off. But again, here, the action, because of the hadith, what is meant by that is that a person would prevent him with his hand in a gentle way, so that you don't allow him to pass, so that you would force him to pass, after the sutra. And again, this is conditioned that you have a sutra. If you don't have a sutra, what are you going to do? You're going to run after him? You can't do that. So it has to be that you have a sutra and you're close to the sutra. So when you extend your hand, that's it. He's not going to go beyond your hand, and then that means you're very close to the sutra, that you can prevent him from walking in front of you. And he sees this and he refuses. He still wants to go. Then فَلْيُقَاتِلْهُ, that means you use your force to prevent him. That's the meaning of yuqatilu. Not that you leave the salah and let's just have a fight. That's not what is meant. It means that you would enforce the fact that he won't pass. Right? Unless it's going to turn to something else, that's a different situation. So this is, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that's for the munfarid, for the person that is praying alone, or the imam. The ma'mum doesn't have a sutra. So if someone passes in front of the ma'mumin, there's no harm, they don't have to do this. Now. Now, some of the things with that is if you're praying alone or you're completing your salah and you don't have a sutra, but if you take a step, you'll have a sutra to protect yourself from people walking, and to make it easy for people, then it's a good thing. If it's a step or a step and a half, not that a person will start walking in the masjid. And also, if someone took you as a sutra, be patient till he finishes the salah, to not open the space for him. And the same thing if, some of the rulings here is, is it permissible to pray in the openness? Yes, but not in the presence of people. If you pray in the presence of people, have something in front of you so that you make it easy for people. What else? No.
What about the young children?
No. For young children or a goat passing by, if you get your goat with you to the masjid, and the goat is running around. So in that case, the Prophet ﷺ did something when it comes to the goat. He stepped forward ﷺ to be attached to the sutra, so that the goat doesn't have a choice but to go behind you. So if you have your child and you're close to a sutra and the child is coming, you're not going to fight with your child and push him. He's not going to get it. What is he doing? So you just walk, you take that one step, so he has no choice but to walk behind you, not between you and the sutra. Anything else? Do you have an attendance code? Because of the time. The attendance code is choice. It's easy to take. Choice. Choice is the attendance code. Oh, there's questions. Question 1. Nowadays, contracts have fine print, small letters with extra conditions. Is this haram? If there's a condition in it and it's in the fine prints and it's haram, you're responsible for it. So that's why contracts nowadays, there's no excuse for a person not knowing what's in the contract. Right? Because almost, and again, to be precise in our statements, but almost every contract, you would find a riba condition in it, haram condition in it, late fees, all of these types of things. So there's no excuse of saying I didn't know what's in the contract and what's in the fine print. And if it's not important, they won't put it there. They put it there because if you have a problem, they tell you it's right in the contract. You signed it. So this, I agree, I accept, and we don't know what we're accepting. You're responsible for whatever you accept. And that's important, of course. Yeah, and it's not permissible. It's haram to sign on a contract that has haram condition in it. That's why the riba contracts and things like this, it's not permissible to sign a riba contract whatsoever. Please repeat last sentence meaning. Not sure if that relates to the book or which sentence. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. I guess it's the غبن. لا الاستعجال, meaning without haste. Meaning الاستعجال is العجلة. Hopefully this is what is meant. Quickly, inshallah, how old can child be to cross in front, like when grandkids cross between us and the sutra? If they pass and they're faster than you, it's fine. The salah is not invalid or anything. But if you want to protect yourself, then step forward and be close to the sutra so that they walk behind you and don't break your salah. But it doesn't break the salah. The women, they break the salah of men if they walk in front of them, between them and the sutra, yes. And this is what is correct opinion. So if even if it's one's wife walks in front of her husband when he's making salah between him and the sutra, then he has to get out of the salah and join the salah again. And he should not fight with his wife, of course. He just leave the salah and make. No. One time I was in salah and a sister passed in front of me, and I put my hand out for her to stop her, but she crossed me anyway. So what happens to my salah? Of course, assuming this is the sister asking the question. So what is it? No, if it's a woman, you can't do that. So it happens in the haram. And you see that in the haram. A person making salah in the haram, and women come, a line of women even, and they cross in front of the person. You just get out of the salah and join the salah again. But here in this case, a sister to a sister, and she refused, then the salah is valid, inshallah. It's not invalid because it's a sister to a sister. No. So this is the same question in Arabic, inshallah. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. طيب, we'll continue inshallah ta'ala next time. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.